I want to take you back to 1966. The violence in Selma's happened, murders, 4 people murdered around that event. All kinds of tensions. Vietnam War is raging on. There's conflict in every corner of this nation around race, around the war, around all kinds of issues. There's tension in the air. And John Wolfe, the minister emeritus of this church, stood up in this pulpit on November 6th, 1966, and he preached a sermon called Black Power and the White Backlash, also titled White Power and the Black Backlash. And in it, I want to read you an excerpt because it speaks to, just if you can imagine, they say sometimes that the pulpit, this is the scariest hour of the week for many pastors because they're afraid about what they're going to say. Are they going to get kicked out? What's the response of the congregation going to be? Well, Dr. Wolfe had a different approach. He just said it. And that's the heritage that we come from. And this is what he had to say about Black Power. It was a mostly white church. Mostly white in 1966. All white. All white, says some of the folks who were here. And so Black Power came on the scene. You know, Martin Luther King was saying, let's come together, let's be nonviolent. But all of a sudden, Black Power came in. It sent shivers through the white community and the country. And people were looking for a response, and here's his. Before I go any further, I would like to tell you what the word Black Power means to me. Never mind what Stokely Carmichael and David McKissick say they mean. What they mean, these words Black Power mean to me, is that the Negro has had enough of this nonviolent resistance business. Enough of turning the other cheek when a white hoodlum spits on him. Enough of taking the verbal abuse, the slander, the threats, much less the cattle prods, the tear gas, the fists and blackjacks of white citizens and their policemen. I will tell you clearly what I think about this. If I ever walk into a restaurant and was refused a seat for any reason other than that the restaurant was full or that after 5 o'clock you were expected to wear a necktie, I would breathe fire right into the major domo's face. Yes, I will tell you what the words Black Power mean to me. If one of my children ever came home crying because someone had called him a name or had not let them be a part of some activity or another that all the other kids were taking part of, had not let them come into their house with their friends or go on a bus or come into the schoolyard, I would be so mad that I would probably come close to committing mayhem. Something that never has happened to me, and it better not. No one has ever threatened my wife or my children. But if anyone ever does, you will have to bail me out of jail because I will track them down and take them apart. Nor will I have the slightest scruple about taking the law into my own hands. At least I think that's how I would react. I know that it's the way that I would feel about it and what I'd want to do. And what about the rest of you white folks? In other words, my natural reaction to discrimination against me, much less my children, or against some threat to my family's well-being, is anything but nonviolent. I would no more turn the other cheek than I would fly. And neither, I presume, would you. Or supposing that almost everywhere I went, I would have to watch my step because if I overstepped the bounds that were somehow set there against me, I would be called a name or spat upon or otherwise put in my place, quote unquote, supposing that I, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, were made to feel unwanted in the theater, in the public buildings, in the churches in my community. What do you suppose I would do? I'll tell you what I would do. I would organize. And I would start thinking about ways to overthrow the whole cotton-picking system that threatened my way of life. I would organize all the rest of you white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and we would elect a congressman and elect a governor, and we would do that in the community. Though we would elect a mayor and a chief of police, and then we would move in on that community. I would corner every bit of capital to buy out the stores and the theaters that offended me, or I might get another group of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant friends together, and we would stop trading at any of those places, open up our own stores and our own theaters. That's what I would do, and a lot more. Now, that's what I think black power means. And I can understand it, as I know the rest of you white folks can understand it, because we invented it. And what is more, we still have a corner on it. And then he goes into talking about white power and how it's been used and how it's been abused and how it needs to change. So anybody who thinks that I'm controversial in the pulpit, I'm like a pussycat compared to Dr. Wolf. And like he said, it wasn't always just peaches and cream in the congregation either. Not everybody liked the fact that that's what he had to say and that he used the pulpit the way that he did it. I've told the story for 15 years about him speaking out against Dr. Mason, the school board superintendent, and how after he spoke out against him, he ended up leading the march and resigning. But after he spoke from this pulpit, it was printed in the paper the next day, what he had to say. And I always thought about it as the paper was saying, see, finally somebody's speaking truth to the superintendent of schools, and that there was great admiration for this heroic man because we think of the victory and how wise and how smart and how important that was. However, I finally, in preparation for today, looked in the archives and found the actual article and what the Tulsa World had to say about Dr. Wolf, and it wasn't as I imagined. First of all, you have to understand, this was a clipping from this newspaper, and it came in, and it's attached to a letter from a member of the church. It's on her nice letterhead, and it says, she's written on the top of this Tulsa World article, if you don't like Tulsa the way things are, why don't you leave? And then she has this clipping, and she underlines a few words. And then she writes amen at the end. So here's what she says. She says, the article says, the Reverend John B. Wolf has delivered a tasteless attack on Dr. Charles C. Mason, Tulsa Public School Superintendent, from his pulpit at All Souls Unitarian Church. From his well-advertised title, The Last Days of Dr. Mason, down to his largely undocumented charges against the Tulsa school system and the superintendent, Dr. Wolf has overstepped the role of a minister by using his church position to deliver what amounts to a political broadside. And she wrote in big marker, amen, exclamation point. And she underlined the words tasteless, undocumented, and overstepped. And then wrote a long letter about how she agreed with the paper and that he might as well leave if he didn't like the way things are around here. So you have to understand that when these battles were being fought and when social change is being created, we celebrate the victories later on, and we think of Martin Luther King as this great uniter, and we think of Dr. Wolf as this great hero, but they were going through a lot of controversy. They were being attacked both from inside the church as well as from the newspapers, the mayors, and the other people in the community at the same time, the chief of police or the superintendent of the school. So it's not easy work, and so when we do this work, I think sometimes they start feeling the conflicts that are coming up in the church, and people are mad, and people are posting things on Facebook, and what do we need to do? Is this wrong? Maybe something's wrong with the leadership. I think we just need to remember that this is what it's like. When you're fighting for justice and equality, when you're trying to change things, it's going to create controversy, and that our heritage is that we create a free pulpit and we allow our ministers, and sometimes our members, as we'll have speaking today, come up and speak their truth in love and speak their truth to power. And so that is the heritage that we come from here at All Souls, and may we protect it always. May we cherish it and honor it, and may you and I carry it long, long into the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in online. We are so pleased with all the different people who have been tuning in from all over the country and all over the world to our ministry and what we're doing at All Souls here in Tulsa. if you have a chance to send me an email or connect with me in some way, let me know what you're finding, why you tune in, and what you're getting out of it. I would love to hear from you. I'm always pleased when I get messages from different people who tell me all kinds of things about the impact of All Souls Tulsa's ministry on them and their lives and their families. And if you get a chance to make a gift to support this ministry, to become a partner, we would love to partner with you and have you be a friend of the church and somebody who is actually supporting us to create this congregation and the world that we're trying to create together. You can be a part of it, and every gift of every amount makes a difference. We really appreciate your support.